but where we think there might be some shifts and some hopes we have for how queers and solo parents can utilize this law to get those expensive ass fertility procedures covered. And I will say we're gearing this towards LGBTQ folks and solo parents, but of course this bill will benefit anyone who needs fertility procedures covered. It only helps folks. And then we'll open it up to Q&A. So yeah, Lyla, thanks for that. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Rach. Rachel is responsible for this beautiful PowerPoint. My name is Lyla. I use they, she, he, and ilu pronouns. I spent many years working in California, and that's where I met Rachel and got my law degree and have been serving California residents for many years. I now live in Brazil, and so I'm on the stolen lands of the Terra Guarani and Puri, who still occupy these lands and are still working to try to get their land back. Really happy to be here with everyone today. While the name SB 729 is not very sexy, the topic is super important. And it's an honor to, get to listen to Rachel's wisdom and Tiff's wisdom on this topic. Femme and Femme is a law firm that Rachel and I dreamed up many years ago and have recently put into fruition. We are queer attorneys and we're here to serve our queer community. We do a number of things that range kind of a spectrum from like important life moments to important moments around death and disability. We help folks who are expanding their families to include other little human nuggets with confirmatory adoptions, parentage judgments, independent adoptions, things to confirm parentage. If folks are earlier on in the process and are thinking about working with a known donor, we support folks in getting their contracts together. We also do surrogacy agreements. And on the kind of relationship side of things, we support folks to have important conversations kind of pre and post marriage or domestic partnership, or just cohabitation around how you want to share assets, how you want to deal with conflict. So we love to mediate those types of conversations. And then the other side of our work is estate planning, which I think, as Rachel likes to joke, brings up images of like old men, white men with long beards, like carrying and hoarding lots of money. But actually, estate planning is like, I think, better thought of as death and disability planning. And Rachel and I are really passionate about making sure that queer people have the documents that they need to be set up in cases of emergency to ensure that the people they want taking care of them are present with them, so that certain laws in California that may default to biofamily are superseded by, setting your own intentions around how you want to be treated when you can't make your own decisions and then once you've passed away. Those are advanced healthcare directives. Financial powers of attorney deal with giving folks power to deal with some more of your digital and financial assets. And then wills and trusts are making sure that what's important to you gets passed on to those that you love, including pets, including like beautiful handbags, including, all cherished items that we know are precious to queers. And I'll pass it. Oh, actually, I think I'm doing the next slide. Yeah, thanks, Rach. This is just a fun, wordy disclaimer relating to our services as a law firm. So we're not agreeing to be anyone's lawyer today, and we're not providing legal advice. The important distinction there is that legal information is like information that is available, that we know, that is like based in fact. Legal advice is like assessment of the law as it relates to your situation. So we're not able to offer legal advice to folks on this type of setting, although feel free to reach out to us. We offer free consults if you want to talk more about any of the stuff we just talked about. Today is going to be a session on legal information, and thanks for holding the nuance that is being a lawyer in this time.
Hey folks, my name is Tiff Chang. I am they, them pronouns. I am a health insurance broker. My sister and I have a independent family-run small health insurance agency based out of the Bay Area on unceded Ohlone and Coast Miwok land. And first of all, honored to be here. And second, I think it's very special that Lila and Rachel are doing this presentation with Maria because I work with a lot of health insurance carriers, and they have not been hosting webinars like this on this particular law. So this is very special to have it translated and downloaded in this particular way for y'all. What is a health insurance broker, you might ask? It's someone who sells health insurance and can be the go-between between the carriers and you or your business, and can help you navigate different situations like leaving a job or starting a job and choosing a plan, or starting a small group health plan, or turning 65, or deciding between Medi-Cal and another option, etc. Um, I'm here to talk about how you can possibly opt for some of these IVF options and what is available and what you might have control over in a small business sense. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Tiff. We're super grateful to you for joining us very last minute to be down to support the queers. And that's the other thing is like we're a full queer little group today. And I love that. The only thing, Lyla, thank you so much for sharing a bit more about femme and femme. And then I promise I'm going to get into it. But when you were talking about wills and trusts, like we talk about resources and passing them down and also making sure that our people are taken care of and the state rules don't default to just biofam. But it's also nice to be thinking about things in terms of like mutual aid. And we're here to also support you, like resisting these structures that say, like, oh, this is the only way to pass down resources. And the reason that's relevant to what I'm saying is that I'm like, you're supporting queer businesses by being on this call. And I just feel like that's an important value to me. And these times, like, there's extra ways in which this administration is coming for queer business owners. And so it means a lot to see you all here. Okay, let's get into it. I could not fix this tiny little typo. It was driving me crazy. So we're just gonna pretend that line is slightly under Senate Bill 729 and I'm gonna let it go. But this is the actual text of the law. Just like I'm sure many folks know this, but also just like to demystify how to get information about the legal system. So I included how to actually read the text of the Senate bill yourself. Like many people know, the California legislature actually has a pretty accessible, if ugly, website where you can read what bills are being passed by a legislature. And there's actually been some really cool local laws that have been passed and statewide laws that have been passed that are supporting the queer community during these like horribly repressive times. So prior to SB 729, queer Californians and solo parents, folks who are pursuing this by choice, I also fucking hate that language. So if you hate the folks who are on the family journey, unless you fit into a particular type of nuclear family structure, were denied coverage of what we call like infertility benefits, which are like IVF, egg freezing, and egg retrievals. And now with 729, if a health insurance company is providing these benefits, they cannot deny them to queer people. They cannot deny them to folks based on if you're just doing the solo. They cannot deny this if you're in a polycule. So it's huge. And we're going to see a lot more expansive healthcare specifically for employers with 100 or more employees. California, there's like a couple carve outs that we'll discuss in a moment. But I just want to say, like, this is a really big deal. And part of the reason they're able to do this is they've changed the definition of infertility. Before this law was passed, infertility was basically defined such that, again, it only really applied to these like nuclear family structures where like a woman was unable to get pregnant after multiple tries in a very particular heterosexual context. And coverage begins in 15 days. Okay, so who is covered under this law? Also, very interesting, Tiff, that the insurance companies are not fucking sharing this information. Ugh, I just believe everything is a conspiracy. So currently the law requires large group health insurance plans, so employers with 100 or more employees, to cover this infertility diagnosis and treatment. This includes up to 3 IVF cycles, which is huge. Like currently a lot of us know how expensive they are. It's in the tens of thousands for one retrieval, and you now have up to 3 retrievals. What I don't recall is if it's actually like per year or if it's just like a lifetime of up to 3. There is unlimited embryo transfers, so unlimited extracting of eggs from your body if you are someone that has if you are someone who has the ability to create eggs. You
Rachel,
might, oh yeah,
sorry, you said 3 retrievals and unlimited transfers, right?
that's right.
Okay.
That's right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for catching that. And then there's also the fertility meds, which for me, when I went through an elective egg procedure, my fertility meds were in the thousands of dollars. All of that is covered. Um, and you might wonder, okay, well, what about elective egg freezing? Some of us are. The only reason I was able to do an elective egg freezing was that I was at a law firm that paid for it. And thoughts on that aside, we also know that's really expensive. So elective egg freezing is not necessarily covered by this law. Tiff, I think we'll go into a little bit more detail about some avenues that trans folks can use to maybe have elective egg freezing covered. But we do think there might be some room here over time for elective egg freezing to also get covered in a wider variety of circumstances. Okay, who is not covered? Solo and individual family plans, like the ones that you purchase on the Covered California website. Like I purchased my own individual family plan. Unfortunately, it's unlikely because we know that insurance companies are rarely operating for the greater good, that they're going to just like randomly add that on. Also, for California state employees, the CalPERS health plans are not yet covered, but will July of 2027, which we know is quite far out. I think I was going to say something else, but I have forgotten it, and I trust that it will come back to me. Tiff, how do you feel about talking a little bit more about some of your insights?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so
Great.
much, Rachel. So basically, for there are different segments of health insurance. I'll start with that. There's large group, which is over 100 employees. And then there's small group, which is 1 to 100 employees. Typically, I see 1 to 20, 1 to 50. And then there's individual and family plan insurance, which I call IFP. And individual and family plan insurance means that you don't have an offer of insurance through an employer, and you're buying it directly from Kaiser, from Blue Shield, from Anthem, or you're doing that through Covered California with a subsidy based on your income. So unfortunately, let's eliminate all of the IVF options for people on individual and family plans. This law is not addressing that, and it remains uncovered, unfortunately. Um, and then the good news is that for folks who work for corporations and large businesses, that should be covered according to SB 729. But there's this middle area of people who work for small businesses. And so if you work for someone with a small business and you might have some say in how they run their health insurance benefits if they do offer them, or if you yourself might have an employee or have an LLC or corporation, um, then there are options to elect to have a fertility rider. So with a small group health insurance plan, you can choose the carrier and the type of insurance they are offering if you're the owner or in HR. And previously, there was a rider, meaning that everyone who joined the insurance from the company would have this fertility benefit, but they were really limited. They only covered like $2,000 and excluded IVF. So they were pretty useless. But now with SB 729, the law is requiring all small group insurance offer a rider that covers IVF in a very similar way to the large group. So that's fantastic. Um, the question is, well, are they really in compliance yet? And the answer is no, not all of the carriers are in compliance yet for January 1st. But there are 3 carriers that currently are saying that they are. Number 1 is HealthNet, number 2 is Kaiser, and number 3 is United Healthcare. And that's fantastic. I've actually talked to someone who has gone through HealthNet and gotten most of everything they wanted to get done covered, with the exception of a couple hiccups regarding some meds, but they're still mostly covered. And what that means is that if you are a business owner, or you have influence over what's happening, you can start a small group plan with a rider that would cover IVF, and it increases the rates for everybody on that plan by typically 2 to 5%, and everyone on that plan would have access to the fertility rider. Yeah, and the question is typically, well, maybe I have a small business. Would I qualify to start a small group health insurance plan? And the answer is it really varies as to what the smallest is. If you have a full-time, which is 30 hours per week, minimum wage or more, employee, W-2 employee on payroll, you can absolutely start a small group health plan. And then with Kaiser, you can also be an owner and a W-2 employee, one person small group, and you have to be a corporation or an LLC. And there are a couple other, combinations where it could be, oh, I'm the owner and the employee, or my, partner, etc. is also. So we can work with you to figure out if it's an option. But essentially, for a few carriers, for small business, there is an option of doing IVF benefits through those, and that's fantastic. And I'm hopeful that more will become compliant as time goes on. So that's the first and most relevant thing that I want to say, and I'm happy to work with people if they have questions. The second thing that I want to say, it's not news, but I want to bring up that there is a law in California that was aimed at mainly pediatric cancer patients, saying that if you are about to undergo some sort of treatment that may affect your fertility in the future, you are allowed and required to be offered fertility preservation. And that is really great. I mean, I personally encountered this where if you were thinking about doing gender affirming care, they might offer for you to have your, for example, eggs frozen for free, covered as a preventative service. I don't believe I think a lot of carriers might give some pushback, but for example, I believe people have been doing it through Blue Shield of California without any issues. So also happy to talk to people about that. That's something that's good to know.
I'm doing a new thing where I'm doing the presenting, and I'm like, first of all, Tiff, thank you so much for that extremely helpful additional insight. I was trying to track the chat and I got distracted. Okay. I think I just want to say a couple of additional things, and then I want to open it up to some of the questions we're seeing in the chat. Oh, yes, this piece about like, okay, maybe I was grateful that Tiff was willing to talk about this like small group plan coverage piece, because I know that there are many small queer business owners and there is some room there to get creative. It's not a guarantee, but we wanted to, again, because these insurance companies are not providing this information, make it clear that there might be something that could be a little bit more expensive for you and your business up front, but could mean like a wide swath of fertility costs, which are in the tens of thousands of dollars, could be covered for you and or your employees. So we wanted to make sure we flagged that. I think it's time, Lyla, unless I missed anything. Oh, yes, I just wanted to say that, right, before we go into the questions, I think someone was asking here too, like, what about other insurance providers? When can we expect them to be in compliance? Like, they should be in compliance January 1. It is possible, knowing these behemoths, that they will fight that. We all know how hard it is to get things covered that are covered explicitly, let alone when there's a new law at play. And so that's also why I wanted to show you where you can find the text of this bill for folks that are like not going to hire a lawyer. Like, we're not insurance lawyers, there are insurance lawyers who will like fight on your behalf, but that's usually quite a hefty fee. We wanted to equip you with where to find this language in the text of the bill to use if you're ever in this kind of fight. Okay, Lyla, any thoughts before we tackle some questions?
No, that was fantastic. I've been tracking the questions myself here, and yeah, nothing missing on my end.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do is just read through them and then maybe I can try to answer Tiff, and if I can't, see if you can, and if neither of us can, we'll say we'll get back to folks if they want to write to us.
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. So, oh wow, because there's a lot more. Yes, the recording will
Oh,
be available. Maria's doing that.
Rachel,
Yes.
we had a lot of questions about IUI and if it specifies how many IUIs will be covered, or it just says IUIs will be covered. So that came up a couple times.
I actually think it's unlimited IUIs, but I want to get back to you. But my instinct is that IUIs are definitely covered, and my instinct is that it's all of them. Tiff, I don't know if you happen to know better than me.
Unfortunately, I don't. I don't understand all the terminology yet.
Totally fair.
It
Yeah.
it didn't, my understanding too is it didn't specify a limitation for IUIs,
Yeah.
but that there is some room for different insurance plans to like interpret it in their own ways. So that may be a question for the individual provider.
Yeah, I think, I'm nobody's lawyer on this call, but as providing legal information, I'm like, go in presuming that this law, if it has not expressed an explicit limitation, will cover should cover what you want it to cover. They will fight you because they will fight you over anything, but I think that that's just like a little bit of a strategy for how to deal with insurance companies. And I'm sure you're right, Maria, that we're definitely going to see a range of interpretations by these insurance companies across the board. But there's no reason that we should give them, I don't know, any inch if we need to. Um, that's a great question about like whether or not anesthesia will count as a medication for the procedure. I don't feel like I know the answer to that. I would look at the brochure. And I think Tiff, you mentioned that like some Health Net has updated their brochure. Has Kaiser updated it yet?
Kaiser has updated their EOC's evidence of coverages, which are their really long documents, and I'm happy to help people find it if it's in the small group market. If folks are doing it from a large company, then you'll have to access it that way. And I'm looking at the IUI for small group with just for example, Kaiser, and I'm also not seeing any lifetime maximums, which typically means unlimited.
So that's the other term. Like I was grateful to Tiff once for like walking me through where things are listed in the brochure. But for Kaiser and HealthNet, you can actually turn to the brochure to see if anesthesia is one like covered generally under your plan, and then also if it's like there's a subsection for fertility.
I would say that it would be covered anesthesia because the idea is that all of these fertility services were previously not covered, and now they're being covered, which means we kind of bring them under the umbrella of the services that a plan covers. And the question is, well, what do I pay for these services now? And the answer is, well, whatever the equivalent, non-fertility medical copay or deductible plus coinsurance would be. So, if you had an outpatient surgery or outpatient procedure, for example, that was not fertility related, now that, for example, maybe egg retrieval, et cetera, would be the same copay or coinsurance amount. So the anesthesia will be covered, and it'll be kind of the same cost as anesthesia for non-fertility procedures.
And Maria, do you want I can just like read the questions down the line, but you're much more skilled in the department. So I'm happy to defer to you if you want to group the questions and ask us.
Great. Yeah, I'll kind of moderate the chat. And we had a question from Hannah. Do you know if this only applies to companies that are based in California, or if anyone who's employed in California, even if the company is based elsewhere, will still qualify for this coverage?
Reading the text. Oh, go ahead, Lyla.
I was just muttering that it was such a great question. So please feel free to continue.
I'm just going back to the text of the law. My instinct again is that it's employers with 100 or more and it's a California law, so that it should apply to you since you are in California. Um, but Hannah, maybe we can sync back at the end. My expectation is that it should absolutely cover you as a California employee, even if your company is based elsewhere. Yeah. Um, Maria.
For small group, if I can add, I
Yes,
believe that the
please.
company would need to be based out of California and have a California-based small group plan. So if you are based in California but maybe have an employee somewhere else, then that employee should still be able to access benefits. Alternatively, if it's a small group plan based out of another state, then I don't believe you would have benefits in California.
But you think if it's a large group that they would, Tiff?
For a large group, I don't know enough.
Okay.
I would
I
go
do,
off of what
I
Rachel,
do,
yeah.
I do think so. Based on, again, reading the text of the bill, which says a large group healthcare service plan contract, except, with the carve out of some exceptions, which we mentioned here, shall provide. Um, And we've seen differences in how insurance plans are applied across different states. Like states are usually defaulted. So if you live in Virginia, you're not going to have the same rights as you do in California. And we're seeing that right with the fight for reproductive justice and what fertility coverage is being regulated. And part of the push for this bill was to take care of Californians specifically, regardless of who their large employer was. So that's again my instinct. But we can follow up. If I made a mistake, which is always possible, we can follow up to the like registered attendance and I can share that.
Awesome. Thank you. Do you know anything about the self-insured schools of California plans, Tiff or Rachel?
I don't.
Is
Well,
there
so self-insured would imply that they're a large group, and that would imply to me that they have to follow this law under the large group rules.
awesome. I know we got a question about if there are any resources that exist or potentially we could even create to bring to an HR company to help them like get on board with
Yes.
what's happening.
And I love that. And that was the thing I was gonna say is that we almost put a note here that was like, you can talk to your HR rep, except that what we've been seeing is that people are going to the HR reps and they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. What do you mean? Or they're giving the wrong information. So again, why queers take care of queers. Um, I think that's important and I like that idea. And I would sync with my business partner, Lyla, but I do think that's a lovely asset that we'd be interested in offering or co-creating.
Great. Is there any information on the law providing coverage retroactively? Ariella shared that they literally just started the process again for an embryo transfer, but did the retrieval back in 2023.
I feel you. I think that this bill, there was a lot of pushback from the insurance companies. Like they lobbied really hard for this to not go into effect. So I think they had to make it as like narrow as possible, as you'll see by, CalPERS being pushed to 2027. They initially had been like directed that they had to have all of this in place 6 months ago. They got an extension. So not only is there no like retroactivity covered in the bill, while I always encourage folks to fight with their insurance companies, I would not expect it to go anywhere, which definitely sucks. I feel you on that.
Unfortunately, I would also say that would be a hard no from them, most likely. I would not
They
expect
suck.
anything else.
But they should cover the transfer of the embryos that were already created.
You mean, well, it depends on when this, because it also matters when, like, presuming that the health coverage is now in effect starting January 1, but the like direction is around that health coverage. But yes, presuming you're having the transfer under this new healthcare plan, yes, it would be covered.
Can I just chime in with my voice?
Oh my God, yeah.
Hi, thank you so
Hi.
much for doing this. And so yeah, I already like I paid, out of pocket for the crazy fucking meds, and now I'm gonna do the transfer, but it's January 15th. And so I'm, expected to pay kind of soon. And I'm just wondering, like, that's a very close date, and would somebody suggest, like, if I kind of asked a fertility doctor if I could, based on this law, like what I could do? Do you think?
Yes.
Okay.
And what's your, I'm just to take a brief moment, if you don't mind me asking in front of a group of people. That was the one thing we didn't say. We're recording this,
Yeah.
and it's going to be for pregnant together folks. And sorry, Lila, maybe you said it and I had a brain fart. We ask that folks keep this confidential. It's how we take care of you, but there's no expectations of
All good. Yeah,
confidentiality. Okay,
I
in that
consent. I
vein,
consent.
you consent. Okay, what's your health? What's your health plan?
So I'm covered by my partner who is under Aetna through Providence Hospital as a nurse. So I don't even know. I saw somebody mention Aetna as maybe not the thing. I don't know. So
I mean,
Providence
they
is
should be. Aetna should
well
be.
over 100 employees. So I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would come equipped with this law and say, help me understand how this will be covered. To
Okay.
confirm, I believe my procedure will be covered under this law, cite to it. Help me understand how, what do you need to make sure that's in place? That's off the cuff what I would say to do, and I
Okay.
welcome.
And I would reach out to Aetna directly.
Do you like your HR rep?
I have no clue if they're even, you mean like through the company?
Yeah, sometimes people like their HR rep. I
I,
always say that HR reps are the cops if you're going in to report anything. So don't expect like, but if
yeah,
it comes, they should know your benefit plan. So that is another person to go to. If they say they don't know how to help you, then you can also go to Aetna directly.
yeah, no clue, but I will ask my spouse see and find out.
I
Okay.
think
Thank
those are good.
you.
Can I
Those are
just
great
add?
suggestions. Ooh, if I can chime in, those are great suggestions. I would also say that your HR rep might know the person who works for the carrier that is responsible for Providence, and they should be able to get information and fight on your behalf. And second, you can also, and I might do this soon, have your healthcare provider run your insurance and
Mhm.
see what the cost estimate would be. And that's going to start at least bringing all the problems to the surface that I'm sure there will be because it might be the first time someone's doing this ever on that plan.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, y'all.
Yeah, and
And
Rosa Park, I see you. Yeah, please come through.
as somebody who used to work at Providence, if that was the
Hmm.
case when you said that in regards to your partner works at Providence and that's how you have your insurance, from my awareness of Providence, they have like a HR one stop. So it is not like your HR rep locally that you would be working with, but like a general call center that may or may not be in the US. And so it is sometimes a bit more difficult to advocate for your rights, as my personal experience 10 years ago. So it's been a bit, but still, they don't always know what your state policies are when you're on the phone with them. So you might want to go through the digital platform and like the chat messenger, because A, you're going to have everything written and documented going through that portal. And then it also gives them like they would be looking up the things to make sure, oh, okay, yeah, she's in California and says, or they are in California and said that this is the thing that applies to them. Let me look it up and then I can follow up with them. So there'll be a lot of, give me a moment, please. But at least you'll have that in that platform versus on the phone.
Rosa, this is so helpful. And you like so know it's so on point. Yeah. They're like not a human that we talk. Yeah, totally. It's yeah.
Yes, I know, because I used to work
Nice.
there and had to advocate for myself too. So
Yeah. Cool.
And I,
wishing you
I
the best.
I
Thank you.
know we just focused on a very specific case and I love these, but I was like, hopefully we can also just extrapolate that if you're running into roadblocks, like it's not your fault. Like these systems are designed to keep us confused. And also it's usually folks who are like, it's not their fault. It's like the CEO of the company that's like raking in cash. But all to say you like I loved Tiff's like I want to make sure I lift up Tiff's voice of also just like asking your carrier to run your new insurance and see what happens. As like a very straightforward way to get at least information about how much they're saying it's going to cost to decide how you need to advocate for yourself.
And in the very likely event that they won't figure it out before mid-January, if that was the date, because you might be the very first person to do this, they might have no systems in place, which I have seen happen. you might have to pay up front and then do a very long fight to get it paid retroactively to you via filing a claim.
And Tiff, is this something that you help people do, like the actual advocacy with the insurance companies, or more choosing the plans?
When I have a small group and we have the connection to the carrier, then yes, we advocate and we talk to the rep directly and stay on them. If it's going to be through Providence, I have no connection to like that Aetna side of things, so I can't do that. But always happy to maybe receive an email and think of things you haven't tried yet. And when in doubt, bring it to the attention of the Department of Managed Healthcare, DMHC. Yeah, because they oversee how the insurance carriers are working. And when you have a claim that, you've appealed with your carrier, you've appealed with your carrier again, and they keep saying no, this is the next level that you bring it to. And they say, hey, insurance carriers, there's this law, you have to follow it. Department of Managed Healthcare.
I just put the website in the chat,
Thanks,
and
Maria.
I know that there are people like in Maine and New York where these laws have, I think went into effect like a year ago, a little bit more recently, or like a little bit in the past, that have had success appealing to the state boards to get coverage when individual companies are not.
And Maria, oh, I'm so sorry. I just cut you off.
I just said when they're not in compliance. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. I see Danny's question in the chat about solo parents, and I just want to make sure I speak to that as a, hopeful solo parent. I think it is very clear that this applies to solo parents. I think there is no room the bill is very clear. Solo parents were also, as LGBT families and solo parents were clearly in mind with the design of this bill. So I just want to say that it's a big deal for all folks, and I wanted to make sure to lift that up. Like, you should not be getting pushback, and like your rights as a solo parent were thought of in the creation and push of this bill.
I think Sophia's important to talk about. Their question is for insurances that make you start with IUI. They're wondering if anyone has been able to start with IVF instead of IUI using gender dysphoria, or if this is addressed at all in the new bill. Do I could share some thoughts, but Tiff, or Rachel, do you want to speak to that?
No, please share your thoughts.
Well, there are some insurance companies, and it's like a little bit of an antiquated like holdover from like the definition of infertility as based on the heterosexual experience. Like, some insurance companies will require that you do 6 IUIs before moving to IVF. And at least with this new bill, if the insurance company maintains this stance, which is like really not medically and socially advised anymore, at least people do not need to pay out of pocket for those IUIs, although it's no guarantee that the cost of sperm will be covered. I do think that there's possibility to like present research and like appeal based on gender dysphoria. I don't personally know people who have done it yet, but I do think that like so many of these things, we need people to be advocating for themselves to create precedents for other people. And so unfortunately, like, we're kind of in this beginning process of like needing to create these pathways, and hopefully here we can like develop the support for people to be able to do it and advocate for themselves.
Just going through these amazing questions. I think we've answered a lot of them. It looks like, oh, there's a question about CalPERS. Nikki, did you feel like we answered your question, which should basically be yes? Unfortunately, CalPERS employees will not kind of receive the benefits of this coverage allegedly until 2027. I mean, again, who knows? Maybe they can certainly do it earlier, but there is a carve out for them because they understand that like state bureaucracy takes forever. And I think someone else had asked a CalPERS line about, honestly, I think it's just they wanted this law to pass. And they know that California state agencies take 30 million years to arrive at a consensus on anything. I don't see a reason why you can't try to advocate for yourself, but again, just want to like give you the likely prognosis that they'll say, sorry, you're out of luck.
So Mo asked, is freezing and storing of eggs or embryos covered? Like, will they cover the storage fees? It sounds like they will cover up to 3 retrievals.
I don't actually know. I was thinking about that. At first, I was like, well, if it's elective, but I'm like, no, you can argue that storage of an embryo is necessary for fertility process. So I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
For small group, I'm looking at the Kaiser guidelines and it says cryopreservation and one-time storage of embryos related to a covered IVF treatment cycle for up to 6 months. So for that, yes, and I would assume it's similar for UHC and HealthNet.
So it sounds like if you are freezing eggs or embryos, you will need to pay the annual storage fee, but they will cover for 6 months. But they should cover the retrieval.
Yes, they cover the retrieval. But yes, that's good to know about the 6 months. That makes sense, unfortunately. I know that's expensive. It's like $1,000. So that's what I pay. Y'all, everyone's questions are really wonderful. Okay, we have like 13 minutes left. I think, I mean, I guess this chat system's working really well. But Maria, is there any questions that you've thought of that we haven't covered, or Tiff or Lyla, you want to add anything off the cuff?
No, I think the resource of the and I'll re-put it in the chat, the Department of what it's a long acronym, Managed Healthcare, is really useful if you're like continuing to find roadblocks in your own company. And just be prepared for it to like take time, but it does sound like Tiff said, like if you do it under, if you are covered and the logistics are taking too long to actually have your insurance company pay up front, it sounds like as long as you are persistent with your advocacy, it's likely that you can get it reimbursed at a later date. Is that right, Tiff?
I mean, generally that's how it works. If there's some sort of fight between the insurance company and your doctor and you, then you can just go ahead and pay for the thing if it's time sensitive instead of waiting. And if it should have been covered, then you can fight about it later and get reimbursed.
Nikki's asking, how do you find out if a fertility clinic takes your specific insurance and when will they update that in response to this new law? And generally, in my experience, you just need to call the fertility clinic and they will let you know, unless there's a specific, like it's specified that it only works with one clinic in a specific area.
That's exactly right. I would just also give them, I do think that, well, I guess this is specific to the Bay. I'm thinking of the fertility clinics here, which are still hard to get on the phone, but I think they're going to be, I think my presumption is that in some of the areas like the Bay Area and maybe Los Angeles, potentially San Diego, there may be a little bit more familiarity because there's just more queers who are like, across these agencies. But yeah, I would also say that if you call and you get a no, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a no, and like maybe try calling again. I think Maria made a great point that we're gonna need to be educating fertility clinics and in some cases. And when you're doing that work, it's not just for you, it's also for other people who are gonna come after you.
Elia asked, thank you for bumping it. I missed it. Do we know if the coverage limit is per person or per policy? like if both the subscriber and dependent to take advantage, do they need to, does it cover 3 retrievals per person or for the policy?
That's a great question. Tiff, if you know the answer, I'm gonna give it to you, but if not, I'm gonna make an educated guess.
If it says lifetime maximum, then at least with that particular carrier, like if you have that carrier, maybe you switch out and then you switch back in at some point, then it's going to be that maximum for your lifetime with that carrier. If you use another carrier and it still says lifetime maximum, I honestly don't know how they would coordinate that. So I feel like that's not a true lifetime maximum if you say do X number of retrievals with this company and another with another company. And then I would also just say that, it's all of the procedures that are happening to this, like the member, like the patient's like body. So there's not like, it doesn't cover partner stuff if this person isn't insured, for example, or if there's a question about like donation of sperm, like that's not covered unless you're the person who has the sperm.
But I think, Tiff, thank you so much. I think with Elia's question, feel free, Elia, to jump in if I'm not understanding you correctly. But you're both of you are covered under a policy. Just one of you is like the employee and one of you is like also covered under their own policy because of the way your healthcare works. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. My partner is the employee and I'm on their health insurance.
So I would interpret it as per like you each have your own policy then with that employer. So you're each covered under these procedures. That's how my brain is thinking through it.
Agree with you.
Amazing. Okay, great. So then yeah, Elia, you would both be covered in that case. Like you each have your own lifetime maximum, if that makes sense. I'm going to presume yes. I love it.
Tiff, do you know how long it takes to be added to a spouse's insurance plan after getting married?
Oh, you typically have 60 days to report a change after getting married. Or, I mean, you can also become domestic partners. Sometimes you don't even have to be a registered domestic partner to join a plan. That's on a company by company basis. And then whenever you submit the change, typically it's the first of the month after submitting that reported change. So pretty quickly.
I do want to just share one thing about domestic partnership versus married. This is a little bit of like femme and femme law hat. So this is something that I did not fully understand when I got domestic partnered with an beloved of mine many years ago. But in California, if you are a domestic partnered under the state of California, you basically you have the same rights and responsibilities as a married couple in California. When you when you go outside of California, that's where there's some difference. And a little known thing is that some cities allow you to become domestic partnered under the city policy. That means it is not the same as getting married. And that is to allow you to join some healthcare plans. So there is like a nuance here. We do free consultations. You can always schedule time for us. But I just want to flag that I do know many folks, because health insurance is getting so expensive, are thinking about, hey, how do we cut costs here? For a variety of reasons, don't want to get married and therefore think, okay, well, I should just get domestic partnered. And so we want to flag like, no, that is literally the same thing now in California. But there are these other little known ways to do it. And it's called being a registered domestic partner under a particular city or locality, and there are specific rules for that. So, and that is different. So I don't know. I think that's expanding on what Tiff is saying, but yeah, I wanted to flag that. So it's new information for me.
Thank you. We probably have time for one more question. It's a little bit in the weeds, but Rosellen, hi, asked, she has progeny coverage with a lifetime max, but is the lifetime max through her employer? So as long as she has progeny via that employer, she has that max, but if she gets progeny through another employer, would the max reset? Like, how does lifetime max work in that case?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if someone else does.
If we think about it if Progeny is a carrier, which I haven't heard of, is that an insurance carrier or is that a clinic?
It's a fertility add-on.
Hmm.
And they sometimes cover sperm, the cost of sperm.
Okay. Well, I would assume since Progeny will have your information once and then they'll have your information again, they're going to match that up and figure out that you've done it before. And so you will have met your lifetime max. But if you use something that's not Progeny, I'm like, how are they going to know?
That's what yeah.
Can I just, as a not legal advice person who was in HR, did benefits, enrollment, and things, I would say it would be, I think of like glasses. If you used your lifetime maximum going to an eye clinic with one insurance, and then midway through the year you switch to a new eye insurance company, then they have a new maximum, and you would be able to get glasses or contacts again, technically. And so I would hope that it would be in that kind of same vein, that because you're with a different employer, different plan, that it would be actually a whole new policy for lifetime maximum, technically. So
But
the
Rosa, just like
problem is if you're a really dedicated employee and you stay within the same employer, then you wouldn't be able to get as many benefits possibly. But that's my, again, not my current legal HR brain, but where I think it would be as a, from my past knowledge.
I think if it's still Progeny, though, I think it would be the same, even if it's a different employer, it's the same carrier. So the same plan through this carrier, especially because it's kind of like an SO, it's not a typical insurance carrier, it's like a specialized one. I would just say honestly, just call them because I'm sure you're not the first person to ask that question. That's what I would do. It gives them a tip off, but it's not like you're gonna want to, sneak it in LOL and then they back charge you and nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Okay. I think, wow, it was a packed house. We got lots of questions. Oh my God, right. Let me show you the last slide. This is what I should have stayed on. Also, Tiff, sorry, I really did not include your email here. Maybe also because I wanted, anyways, feel free to reach out. This is recorded. Thank you, Maria. We appreciate you. That's what I got.
Thank you all. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise. I will send everyone who registered the recording. I will also send, we have this amazing document that a past community member created on like hacking the system for getting your fertility treatments covered. Like there have been people that have worked for Amazon for 4 months to get their IVF covered, and people are doing a lot of creative, interesting things. So I will send that document to you as along with the recording, and then maybe we will crowdsource the creation of some sort of like HR communication information 101 about this that we'll also share with you. And yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us. And thank you all for being here.
Thanks so much for having me. This was really fun.
Bye,
Yeah.
y'all. What a
Thank
treat.
you.
Feel free
Bye,
to unmute if you want
everyone.
to. Bye, y'all. Love
Thank
seeing
you
your
so
faces.
much.
Cute.